Let's start today's story from this point. It was late in the evening. A group of friends had just left work and were walking past an old building when one of them noticed something unusual. The glass door of what looked like an abandoned warehouse was open, and inside he saw a pair of feet with a very expensive-looking golden sandal on one of them. Naturally, he got curious, and so did the others. What could be going on in there? Whoever it was had obviously not seen them coming because they hadn't heard anyone enter. But now the sound of their footsteps had definitely been noticed because a voice yelled out, "Who's there?" Startled, our friends froze in their tracks. Then they started discussing amongst themselves in hushed tones what to do next. One of them wanted to run away while another said they should go back and confront whoever was in there. And that is when one of them came up with the genius idea of climbing through the open window above the door and sneak a peek inside. So that's exactly what they did. Meanwhile, the person whose feet they had seen was sitting at a desk writing something furiously in a book. But as soon as he heard some movement above him, he stopped and strained his ears to listen. He waited for a few seconds, but when he didn't hear anything else, he went back to writing. Meanwhile, the person who had climbed through the window above the door was getting a good look at what was going on inside. There was the desk with the book on it and several other strange contraptions, none of which he recognized. And behind the desk sat the most bizarre sight of all, a man wearing only a pair of shorts. Well, he was actually dressed like it was the 18th century. He wore a fancy white wig, a silk dressing gown, and knee-high stockings. The rest of the room was dark, with shadows stretching long and menacing across the floor. Suddenly, the man in the room stood up and walked toward the window, right toward where our friend was hiding. And then he started yelling, "Who's there? Come out, wherever you are." Our friend froze with fear as the man continued to peer out the window, occasionally wiping his hands on his long white beard. After a while, he went back to his desk and resumed writing in his book. Relieved, our friend climbed back down and joined his friends who were waiting anxiously below. They were all in agreement that whatever was going on in that building was beyond their understanding. As they made plans to leave, they couldn't help but wonder about the strange man and his even stranger behavior. They decided to keep what they had seen a secret amongst themselves, never wanting to talk about it again. That is, until many years later, when they had become old men, sitting together on a park bench, recalling stories of their youth. It was during one of these reminiscing sessions that the question was finally asked, whatever happened to that house with the weird guy? Sadly, none of them knew the answer to that question. They had no idea what had become of the building, or the peculiar man who lived there. The mystery had never been solved and the truth had gone with them to their graves. But here's the thing. We actually have a record of that story being told. It comes to us from a letter written by Mary Shelley to her friend, the famous feminist and proto-punk Mary Wollstonecraft Godwin. Mary Shelley was already famous in her own right when she wrote this letter. She had published the novel Frankenstein, which was an instant success. But she had also recently lost her husband, the great romantic poet Percy Bysshe Shelley, and was struggling to finish her second novel. In the letter, she describes how she and her friend had been walking home from a party one night when they came across a strange house with an open window. Peeking inside, they saw a man with a pen in one hand and a piece of bread in the other.